Put your paws down.
Hello and welcome back to Super Hell, aka the Mystery Spotcast, a show where two recovering Supernatural fans subject themselves to a rewatch so no one else ever has to watch Supernatural again. I'm Klaudia, my pronouns are she, her. You may know me on social media as Klaudia Says, K-A-L-U-D-I-A Says.
And my name is Ollie. I use any pronouns. You can find me on social media at Ollie Fresh. Rise and shine, Sammy! No, I'm just kidding.
It was a heat of...
Yeah, that's how I feel coming back after the strike to record. This is our first episode we're recording post-strike. So, it's big, big day.
Post both strikes. I mean, as we record this, SAG is still voting on the apparently very crappy deal that they were given, so who knows? We might not come back, who knows?
Yeah, we're trying to get as many episodes in betwixt now and if SAG has to go back on strike. And just so you guys know, the way that the strike works is that SAG went on strike. For those of you who might not be as involved in this industry as we are, who, you know, because we keep a lot of tabs on it. I don't want to act like I'm some poser, like, I'm just really involved in the industry. No, we keep tabs on it. But the Screen Actors Guild went on strike, right? And one of the things about that was that you should not promote struck material or struck work or struck studios, right? So that's why we didn't have any episodes, because we didn't want to promote Supernatural or the CW or Warner Brothers. Even though the show is already out, we didn't want to do it. We were showing solidarity. But once a tentative deal was reached between the union and the studios, the strike ended, but the members still have to vote on the deal before it becomes official. So the strike is over, but the deal has not officially been signed and voted on. So right now we are in this sort of limbo, waiting to see what happens, and the longer it goes, more and more people are coming out of the woodwork to be like, hey, there's a really shitty AI provisions in this deal, and it's actually not as great as it sounded initially. So I don't know if we're gonna continue on this path. You know, the other really tough thing is that the SAG leadership seems really to be pushing for this deal, but a lot of SAG members, especially the more online and more technologically minded ones, are like, hey, it's not good.
If you go in the comment section of any SAG AFTRA post, it's like members of all kinds like being like, hey, girly pop, this is not good. And it's really harrowing because when the WGA got their deal, the Writers Guild, they were like, we did it, Joe. Like, they were on fucking board. And for this, it was like, uh-oh. So solidarity with SAG if they go back on strike. Go get them, boys.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it'll be interesting to see, just because the leadership seems to be so dead set on this deal. It's going to be interesting to see, like, the reconciliation there. So anyway, just something to keep your eye on. You know, stand in solidarity with unions. That is our official stance on this show. So if they do end up going back on strike, you won't be hearing from us again for a while. But as of right now, we are here and we plan on chugging ahead.
No, maybe one day we'll get to Lazarus. Who can say?
Yeah, I'm really convinced that they are going to go on strike again just to keep us from getting to Castiel.
That's what happened in the 2000s. That's what happened in 2007.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you saw. I know you saw because you shared it on our Twitter, but I was trying to be coy for the audience. Jared and Jensen were talking about a potential continuation of Supernatural in an interview. And I'm like, the writer's strike has to be, guys, we can't, the writers and the actors, we cannot go on strike again because you're going to create more Supernatural. Like, that's just how it seems to work.
Maybe we'll swing another state blue. Who knows?
Okay.
But, like, the thought, I want you guys to know that when we heard the thought of more Supernatural, both of us were like, oh, I'd rather die.
Yeah, I was like, I'm addressing my suicide note to Jared Padalecki.
Speaking of Jared Padalecki, if you listen to, I think, one of the latest couple episodes of Mabim Bam, they do a bit about Jared Padalecki and his celebrity wine. they have mentioned his celebrity wine before, but they got back to it and they did a whole bit about Jared Padalecki, and I was like, I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, Jared Padalecki, my enemy.
No, truly. There was a TikTok that wasn't like super viral or anything, but I think a lot of people saw it. But it was just going back through some of Jared Padalecki's old social media posts. And, I am of the belief that anyone can grow and change, and that, we shouldn't look at something that people have done a long time ago and say, you are irredeemable. But where's the change, Jared? Where's the growth?
Because
I'm not going to get into the kind of things that he said, because they are genuinely extremely vile, but if you look up Jared Padalecki problematic Twitter, it'll come up.
Oh, truly, almost everyone on this cast has said something very bad. Misha Collins, I'm looking at you in the past 2 months.
Yeah, Misha Collins, guys, also, in case it has to be said, we stand with Palestine.
Yeah,
right? So let's just get that
this
out there
of the way,
as well.
Yeah.
Make sure, I know it'll be shocking if you know either of us or follow either of us on Twitter. You might be surprised to hear this, but we are, pro-Palestine here. So if you have an issue with that, you can stop listening.
I would actually like you to block us on everything. Yeah.
Yeah, please do. Anyway, yeah, no, the cast of Supernatural, again, I'm shocked that Jensen has somehow ended up being the one who is the least
I think it's because he mostly shuts the fuck up. I mean, sometimes he says things at conventions, and you're like, just be quiet.
But it's been a while since he said something at a convention that was really bad. I know I'm jinxing it, but, it's been a minute.
Meanwhile, Misha Collins is out here arguing with people about what the definition of genocide is, and you're like, can you be silent? Please. I need you to be quiet.
In what world am I looking at Misha Collins for advice about the world or anything for that matter?
I have to see his face when a breaking news event happens, but other than that...
Yeah. I'm just saying, Destiel, the Destiel, I love you, insert news headline here, meme is honestly so much more reliable than most Western media at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it always has been. The New York Times lies. Does a Destiel meme on Tumblr lie? No, it doesn't.
Mm-mm.
Half the time because I'm the one writing it.
Yeah, and as we all know, Klaudia has never lied. The point is, a lot has been going on in the world since the last time we spoke, but we are so excited to be back and talking about Supernatural. Are we excited to be talking about Supernatural? I kind of am. These 2 episodes were good.
These 2 episodes, I was like, they don't make TV like this anymore. I was like, network TV is not hitting like this anymore. I know what they struck about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, both of these episodes are... I mean, the second one is a classic, and the first one, I forgot how good that one was.
Yeah, and it had some elements that I feel like definitely could have been worse. I was like, wow, you really dealt with your things.
Oh, I mean, some of you may be listening straight through, and some of you may have not heard us in a while. But as a recap, we are in the middle of season 3. So Dean, he's ready to die. He's ready to die, and he sacrificed his soul to bring his brother back, and now they're having Dean's year of nihilism, and it's not going well. And also, all the demons have been released because they fucked it up royally at the end of the last episode, so keep in mind, there's just demons running loose, and they all hate Sam.
Yeah.
Because Sam was supposed to be the devil.
And only Sam knows that they all hate Sam.
Yeah.
Until we'll find out. I guess we'll see what happens. This episode is season 3, episode 12. It's called Jus In Bello. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Is that French? French. Oh my god, is that Italian? Wow. Is it Latin? It's a legal term. It refers to law of war. Let me see. My sources are telling me that it's Italian.
The voices, aka Mal.
Jus In Bello. Jus In Bello? I don't know. It's Italian. But it means law of war, which is basically a term meaning when it's appropriate to like acceptable justifications for starting a war and like acceptable wartime conduct. This episode starts in a beautiful fashion with Sam and Dean busting into a hotel room, apartment. It's never quite said, but there's all this stuff and they start rifling through it, and Sam's like, are you sure that this is Bella's place? And Dean opens up a drawer and pulls out a bunch of wigs, and he's like, yeah, I think this is her place, because if you'll remember, Bella stole the Colt, which is the gun that can kill anything. So Bella has stolen the Colt, and the boys are desperate to get it back because they're like, oh, there's a whole demon army. They are actually in Monument, Colorado, just so you know. So this is a Colorado episode. While they are looking around the hotel room, they're having trouble, they can't find it. The hotel phone rings, and Sam and Dean look at each other, and Dean goes up and picks it up, and he hears on the other line, Dean, are you there? And he realizes that it's Bella, and he's like, girl, what are you doing? Where are you? And she's like, I'm already 2 states away. Sorry. You know, you think I didn't have a fail-safe? You think I didn't have a plan for when you guys came for me? That's hilarious. And Dean's like, well, sweetheart, I don't know what you're talking about. Where is the Colt? And she's like, it's with me. And he's like, oh, well, you're probably just gonna sell it to the highest bidder. It's really important. Don't you realize that this is, like, gonna, like, it's a matter of life and death? And she's like, oh, you think I'm gonna sell it? You don't know me at all. Anyway, bye.
She kind of served there. Like, I have no nose for her. Like, she kind of did.
But as this is happening, Sam and Dean, like, look at each other. And then what happens? FBI, open up! And the police storm in and get Sam and Dean on the ground and put him in cuffs. And who is there? But if you'll remember, Special Agent Victor Henriksen, who has been tracking Sam and Dean and trying to get them arrested because they have left behind a string of unanswered questions that include murder, credit card fraud, etc. And they're like, oh my god, these guys are the most dangerous criminals ever to walk the face of the earth.
This episode and them recounting their crimes, it really does emphasize how, like, bad at their job they are. Like, they're so bad at hiding what they do. Like, no other hunters are being hunted by the FBI. It's just the 2 of them. Because, yes, they get into some extra crazy shit, but, like, it's just the 2 of them who fuck it up that bad that the FBI notices. Like...
Yeah, but I feel like also Sam and Dean are facing some pretty high stakes in a lot of their cases, so I'm like, I guess it makes sense, because it doesn't seem like any of the other hunters are facing this kind of...
Sometimes it's regular cases, though. Sometimes it's just, like,
that is
ghost
true.
number 3. Like...
Yeah, and then they're like, oops, someone died, and everyone thinks it's our fault.
And they show up in regular clothes with their classic card being like, I'm the police, and expect people to... You know what? They kind of deserve it. Like, you're dumb.
Yeah.
You're dumb.
Yeah, and it's like, the thing is, I can't... Well, up until a couple moments into this episode, I can't really fault Special Agent Henriksen, because he's kind of like, yeah, these guys are murderers and thieves and, like, really dangerous people who've broken out of jail multiple times. Like, it is kind of... Like, I kind of get where he's coming from, not to ever side with the cops, but, you know. But I digress. We see the title screen, Supernatural, and then we get sort of a flashback to what you can assume is earlier, which is Agent Henriksen talking to the sheriff at this local precinct, because it's a very small town in Colorado, but he's like, it's clear that they're, like, preparing for the SWAT, so they're preparing to go get Sam and Dean, and he's like, I get a tip like this, so, like, it's not common for me to get a tip like this. We have to move now. Are you serious? This is all the men you could get? And the sheriff is like, yeah, I'm sorry. 4 people were the only ones I could wrestle up on an hour's notice. And, you know, I mean, and they're kind of having this conversation, and Henriksen goes back into, like, the cells, and there's a guy in there who's clearly, like, an older, like, drunk guy. And he's like, what's he in for? And the sheriff's like, oh, for disorderly conduct and, public intoxication. And Henriksen opens the door and lets him out and is like, this is your lucky day, get out of here. And the sheriff's like, you can't just, like, let my prisoners go. Like, you can't do that. You come in here and you act like some big shot. And Henriksen's like, no, you don't get it. What do you think we're doing here? And the guy is like, well, we're arresting 2 targets, right? And he's like, no, think Hannibal Lecter and his half-wit little brother. They are so dangerous. We need to be careful. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? What does that mean, Agent Henriksen? What the fuck are you talking about? Hannibal Lecter and his half-wit little brother? Huh?
You know there's an AO3 fanfic that's like Hannigram Destiel AU. You know there is.
When he said that, I pulled out my phone to take a note because I was like, what the like, they don't eat people. Like, I don't know. The idea
one of their charges is dismemberment of bodies. So
I guess but
he's like
I don't know.
Like I don't. The other piece of this, I was like, okay, ACAB, when they were like, and maybe this is a commentary on how like justice and policing is so random, and like, you know, random policemen can be like, all right, time to go, whatever. We got to get this person that we think is more dangerous or more whatever. And I was like, mayhaps a commentary was made. Anyway, I'm being facetious.
Another thing to note is that as they are leaving to go make the arrest, there is a secretary who works in the office, and she is a young woman, and she has, like, a cross necklace on. So that's just something to keep in mind for the future. But she looks a little rattled overhearing him talk about how dangerous these 2 are. So then it cuts. The boys have been arrested. They are being led through the police station, like, in chains. Like their legs are chained together. They're both wearing handcuffs. So they get put into the cell and locked up. Also, I've just received word, Jus In Bello is Latin.
Oh, well.
So, anyway, my sources have corrected me. I digress. So the boys get locked up, and,
Why are they chained together?
Because, I don't
Comedy,
know.
I
That's a
guess?
great question. So we could get a funny shot of them trying to navigate around their cell and keep pulling on each other. And Henriksen comes in and is kind of giving them, like, a little shit talk and, like, some banter. And Dean's like, oh my god, what are you gonna do? Like, we got out of prison last time. And Henriksen is like, well, I just spoke to the FBI deputy director, whose name is Stephen Groves. He was like, yeah, I just spoke with him. And I don't know how funny you're going to feel when you're in maximum security prison in Nevada, and I have a court order to keep you there until trial. And this is probably the last time you 2 will see each other ever again. And I'm telling you, the conditions that are going to hold you in between you and me seems a little unconstitutional. But I digress.
Here I was like, oh, okay, so we're really getting into it. All right.
Yeah,
Jesus.
I was like, girl, fuck you. But, it was really, like, it's one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh, okay, like, Henriksen, I kind of get it. Like, I get where he's coming from. And then he's like, I'm gonna be an evil cop. And I was like, okay, well, fuck, never mind. So Dean is kind of like, oh, you got the wrong guy. Like, this is not right. And Henriksen's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Fuck you.
Is this the part where he accuses John Winchester of being a pedophile?
It is, isn't it? So there's a scene sort of before he gets really like, oh yeah, it's, you guys are never gonna see each other again, and Sam and Dean start to get actually, like, worried. This is when they're like, yeah, we're gonna find a way out. Henriksen is like, oh, what do you got? Why do you guys do what you do? And Dean is like, well, and then Henriksen interrupts him and is like, and don't say demons. Don't say you hunt demons. I have to tell you this. Your daddy brainwashed you and, like, probably touched you in places that aren't good. Which I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Shit.
He's like, did that and brainwashed you and whatever. But most people who get brainwashed don't become murderers, so that's
really
on you guys.
Full motive still murder, but in, like, a way to be like, that sucks for you. Anyway,
yeah.
and you're like, damn.
No, he was cold as a motherfucker. I don't know. It was a
John
weird
Winchester,
scene.
you're a motherfucker, but Jesus, he wouldn't do that.
The other thing, too, in this scene is that once they put Sam and Dean in handcuffs, I think Henriksen is like, yeah, we've got you in those handcuffs or whatever, and Dean's like, ooh, you kinky son of a bitch, we don't swing that way, though.
and I'm like, why are you speaking for your brother, first of all?
Yeah,
because we all, unfortunately, we do all know how he swings later on.
Yeah.
But also, Dean, why are you making this joke at this time? I know this is your coping mechanism, but, okay, King.
Anyway, so, Director Groves shows up in a chopper, because initially they were going to take them in a bus, like a full big prison bus, and drive them to Nevada, but the deputy director was like, no bitch, they will escape, I don't trust that, we are sending a chopper. So he shows up with the chopper and comes inside and finds Henriksen and puts a huge stack of paperwork on the desk, and he's like, okay, you fill this paperwork out, I'm gonna go talk to our guys. He walks into the holding cell and goes up to Sam and Dean, and they start to kind of be like, oh, whatever, what are you gonna do? Put us in jail, blah, 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 like bantering. And the guy's not really playing with it, playing in the space, and he's like, I've been waiting a really long time to do this. And Dean kind of stands up and he's like, listen, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. And the guy pulls out his gun and shoots Dean in his shoulder, like straight through, and we see the blood splatter on the wall. And Sam's like, what the fuck? So he jumps up, and we see this man's eyes flash black. He's possessed by a demon. And Sam, for the first time we've seen in the series, recites an exorcism from memory.
I was like, fucking finally, Jesus. You'd think that their father would, like, drill it into their heads when they were young or whatever, but I mean, they do imply that, like, demons are supposed to be rare before this, but, like, finally, Sam, get it together.
Yeah. But Sam rattles off an exorcism, which ends up getting cut short because the demon, like, leaves the host and flies away. And after hearing the gunshot, Henriksen and the other cops at the station, like, run in and see that Groves is dead on the floor, and Dean is, like, bleeding from his shoulder. And Henriksen pulls his gun out, and he's like, what did you do? Did you kill him? You shot him? Because Sam wrestled the gun away from him. But he's like, no, I didn't. Sam throws the gun down. And they're like, oh my god, I swear he was already dead. Like, we did not do this. He shot Dean. And you can check him. You can check him for bullet wounds. We didn't shoot him. And one of the other cops goes down and checks and is like, yeah, he didn't, like, there's no bullet wound. And Henriksen is like, okay, explain what happened. And Sam and Dean are like, well, he was possessed. And he's like, you better give me a better explanation or I'll shoot you both now. And I was like, okay,
mayhaps
no,
we are
not
in a
how
situation.
You do that. Also, it's really fucked up because this entire episode, Dean, like, is actively bleeding out. And, like, you do have a responsibility, like, as a law enforcement official.
Well,
to, like, no, listen, I get it. But it's like, you have a responsibility to, like, provide medical care for
perhaps it was a commentary.
Under arrest.
Perhaps
like,
it was a commentary, that's all I'm saying.
I would say that, but I don't give the Supernatural writers enough credit.
No, I don't. Much like everything in Supernatural, it is accidental.
Yeah, but it is funny because the whole time I'm like, Dean is literally bleeding out of his shoulder and nobody gives a fuck.
And you know what I kept thinking? So he survived being shot point blank through the shoulder, but not a rusty nail.
No, tetanus got him bad. They are like, you are crazy. And Henriksen talks to Agent Calvin Reedy, who is also there. He is like his partner, right? Not his romantic partner, his FBI agent partner. But who's to say? Sometimes the lines get blurred. But anyway, Henriksen is like, okay, you go outside and get the chopper ready because we got to figure out what the fuck is going on. So Reedy goes outside of the precinct to where they've, like, cleared the parking lot to land this chopper. And he looks up and he's like, oh my god, like, one of the agents is dead on the ground, and he looks up and sees that all of the agents, like, there were, like, 4 or 5 of them, all of them have had their throats slashed. They're all dead. And Reedy, like, runs up to the chopper to try to check, and he pulls out his radio, and he's like, hey, they're all dead. And inside, they're like, wait, what the fuck? And Reedy walks up to the helicopter, and it explodes. And Reedy flies back, and then one of the fallen officers stands up and is clearly possessed by a demon and kills him. Then we cut back inside. The sheriff is like, okay, we need to get out of here because this is something crazy is going on right now. And Henriksen is like, no, we are under siege, and if we go outside, we are going to get killed. We need to barricade the doors and figure out what's going on. And as that happens,
also, the sheriff is, like, having a literal fucking panic attack, and the FBI agent is like, get it together. Yeah. You are a trained professional. And I was like, actually, most police officers don't actually have a lot of training, and may have, anyway.
And I will also say, I feel like the sheriff was like, this situation is fucked up and scary. If I was the sheriff, I'd probably be like, girl, we are, like, I feel like he was handling it as best he could for the situation at hand.
Yeah.
But Henriksen's like, no, we need to get it together. As this is happening, Nancy, who's this young woman who is, like, their secretary, is like, the internet is down, and the phones are down, and my cell phone is down, and all of our radios are down. Like, we can't contact the outside world. And they're all confused, and then the electricity just completely goes off, which leaves inside Nancy, the sheriff, Sheriff Melvin, the deputy, Henriksen, Sam, and Dean. So those are the people who we're working with right now. In the cell, Sam is, like, basically holding, like, a hanky up to Dean's bullet wound. I don't know where he got it, but he's, like, holding it up, trying to keep Dean from bleeding out, and he's like, are you gonna be okay? And Dean's like, well, I guess I'll live, but I feel like shit, because, you know, I got shot. Henriksen comes in, and he's like, so, what's your plan? Kill all of us and have them come in and bust you out? And Dean is like, no, I got fucking shot, first of all, so fuck you. Second of all, this was not our plan. Whatever is coming for us is not coming because it is here to help us. Like, it is here to hurt us. So just so you know, we're not on its fucking side. And Henriksen is like, yeah, whatever. Like, I don't believe you. I'm sure you're gonna say it's demons who are doing this. And he walks out and leaves. And then Sam and Dean are sitting there together, and Dean is like, this is weird, right? And Sam's like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, demons have attacked us before, but, like, they don't usually, like, come after us like this. It's weird. It's almost like we have a contract on our head. And Sam has a moment of realization. He doesn't say it out loud, but clearly he's, like, putting pieces together. Then Nancy, the secretary, walks in to the cell and just, like, is kind of looking at them from the doorway. And Sam is like, hey, my brother got shot. I really just need your help. If you could just bring us, like, a clean towel. That's literally all we need. Just a towel so I can keep his wound from, you know, getting infected and being all messed up. So she's like, looks all timid and leaves. And they both kind of exhale like, oh my god, okay, well, fuck us. And then she comes back with a towel. And she walks slowly towards Sam. And Sam has his hands up. He's like, please, that's all I need. She reaches her hand through the bars to give it to him. And Sam grabs her wrist and, like, pulls her in. And she starts screaming. And the deputy runs in and is like, let her go. Another act like that and it's gonna be fucking over for you. So they leave. And Dina's like, what the hell, dude? And Sam's like, look at this. And he pulls out a rosary that she was wearing on her wrist. So now, even though they are still sitting ducks, they have some defense from demons. So I was like,
ate that.
No,
like,
he did. I was like, okay, crafty. Did. The sheriff comes in and unlocks the cell. And Sam and Dean are like, what are you doing? And he's like, listen, we're getting out of here. This is ridiculous. Like, we need to get out of this station and get to safety. And they're like, I don't know if we want to come with you, because they're worried he's possessed. But he's like, no, this is like too dangerous. We have to get out of here. And then Henriksen walks in. He's like, hey, what are you doing? And he turns to Henriksen. He's like, dude, we can't stay here. It's so dangerous. And Henriksen pulls his gun out and shoots the guy straight through the head. And Sam and Dean then realize Henriksen is possessed. And this is where the hashtag craftiness comes in. 5-minute crafts moment. But Sam sort of grabs Henriksen and Dean helps, and they dunk his head into the toilet in the cell, which they have put the rosary in and made like toilet bowl holy water.
Toilet bowl holy water? Oh, that's gotta be the name of the episode.
But they find this toilet bowl. They have this toilet bowl that is full of holy water, and they're basically holding his head under as Sam is reciting the exorcism. And at this point, the deputy and Nancy run in and see the sheriff dead, and Henriksen is getting drowned in the toilet. But they don't do anything, which I'm like, I don't know. I know you're only the deputy, but, like, I would probably do something.
Perhaps.
Yeah, but they finish exercising Henriksen, and they pull him back, and all of the smoke flies out of his mouth. And he's like, what happened? Like, what? I don't understand. And Sam and Dean are like, well, you've been possessed. And they explain what happened. And Henriksen is like, I shot the sheriff. And it's like this really sad moment. And Dean gets this shit-eating look on his face. He looks like a little kid who realizes he's about to say something out of pocket. But he, like, kind of smiles and looks around. He's like, well, you didn't shoot the deputy. And Sam looks at him like he stares daggers at him. It is hilarious.
That's honestly a top 10 Dean moment right there.
No, because the thing too is Dean looks like he's like looking around waiting for someone else to laugh, and no one does.
Like he's about to crack out the tough crowd, am I right? Like,
no, literally. And it's so funny because you can tell on his face that he knows that he shouldn't have said it. But I digress. They sort of explain the situation, and Henriksen is like, he looks super rattled, but he's like, okay. So how do we survive? And they let Sam and Dean out. We see the chains fall to the ground, and they pull up like a map of the police station, like a hand-drawn map. We see Sam with spray paint spraying devil's traps right in front of all of the doors and windows. Henriksen and the deputy pull out a bunch of guns, like everything from the arsenal, and Dean's like, that is not going to do anything. And they're like, what do you mean? We have like a whole army's worth of weapons here. And he's like, yeah, but that's not going to stop a demon. We need salt. Can we put salt up in front of the doors and windows? And Nancy is like, yes, we have like road salt in the supply room. And Dean's like, that's perfect. So they start putting salt up against all of the doors and windows, and Nancy is patching up Dean's gunshot wound. And she is like, they have this very sweet moment where she's like, you know, when I was a kid, I would come home from church and always talk about being scared of the devil, and my parents told me not to take it so literally, so guess I showed them. And Dean kind of laughs, and they have a sweet little moment.
She kind of ate that. All the side actors in this episode, they really just, they gave. Like,
I agree.
They were like, this is my moment, and I loved it.
No, I will say, the writing, this was, in a shocking turn of events, this was a Sarah Gamble written episode, and I feel like she always has very good, like, her dialogue, I feel, always feels very fresh. Like, it feels very authentic, which I appreciate. I feel like I appreciate her more as, like, a character writer than as, like, an arc creator, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The direction of this episode was also pretty good. It felt very fast-paced. Like, I was on the edge of my seat.
Bottle episode, technically.
It technically is a bottle episode, isn't it? As soon as Nancy is done cleaning Dean's wound, Dean is like, okay, where is my car? And the deputy is like, oh, it's in the impound lot right behind the station. And Dean's like, okay, I have to go get something from the trunk. And the deputy's like, oh my god, you're seriously gonna go out there with whatever's going on? And he's like, I will be right back. So Dean runs outside to the Impala, and he starts grabbing a bunch of stuff out of the trunk, and he hears a noise. And he looks up and sees a huge, gigantic thing of smoke that looks like the smoke that demons are made of when we see them. But it's, like, giant. And it's coming to overtake the station, and Dean grabs all of his stuff and he books it back inside. And he makes it just in time as this, like, horde basically coats the station and is, like, rattling the building. There's, like it's like an earthquake is happening. But they're unable to get inside, and we see it pass and fly away. And it cuts to Dean, and he starts passing out these little charms, like these little necklaces that have a symbol that I'm sure if you're familiar with Supernatural you've seen. It's a little circle with a pentagram in it, and it has almost like sunbeams looking, or flames coming off of the side. So they're handing out these charms, and Dean's like, okay, these are gonna protect you from getting possessed. And one of the people is like, oh, well, what about you guys? And Sam and Dean pull down their shirts at the same time, and you see on their chests are tattooed the anti-possession mark, which this is the first time we see those tattoos, and it's very exciting.
That's like the
it's
gift.
iconic.
Yeah, that's the moment right there. And they're like, and it took you 3 seasons to think that one up.
Well, Henriksen is like, how long have you had those? And Sam is like, not long enough.
And I'm like, all right, Sam, he's got jokes.
So as they're chatting, Nancy goes and looks outside and notices that there are people outside. And she's like, oh my gosh, I see one of my friends out there, in a huge group of people. And Sam and Dean look, and they're like, oh my god, that horde of demons is possessing all of the locals, and they're waiting to run up on us as soon as they can get in. So it's spooky scary. Then we cut. The deputy is looking outside one of the windows to try to see what's going on, and we notice that he rubs a tiny little line in one of the salt barriers in front of a window, and he leaves. Just remember that for later. Then Dean and Henriksen are in the sheriff's office loading up their guns, and Henriksen's like, yeah, these are salt rounds, right? That's really cool. And Dean's like, yeah, I know, it's crazy. And Henriksen's like, you know why I do this job? And Dean's like, I can't say that I do.
Dean said ACAB.
Henriksen's like, well, he's basically like, he goes on this sort of monologue where he talks about how he wants to save people, but it's like he'll wait 3 years for a tip and maybe save a handful of people. And, you know, he has a string of ex-wives and basically no family. And he's slaved away for 15 years at this job and has nothing to show for it. And he's kind of like telling Dean, like, I respect you because, you know, you guys are doing this and it seems like you're actually saving people, and that's pretty crazy. But Dean is relating, he's like, yeah, no, it's not really all it's cracked up to be. It's also a really lonely job, you know, like, it's not super fun. And Henriksen's like, yeah, and you only have your brother to go back to at the end of the day. So they're kind of realizing that they're more similar than they are different, except for the fact that Henriksen is a cop.
Yeah, I'm like,
so...
Dean, no! Don't sympathize with the cop!
Yeah, Henriksen is coming around, though. He is in his Slay era. As Slay as you can be when, like...
You are a federal agent.
You know, less than an hour ago you were cool with letting a prisoner bleed out.
You know?
But, no, he turns around a little bit. Once he #wakes up to reality. But they have this, like, heart-to-heart. And then a window breaks, and everybody runs in, and is like, oh my god, the window just broke. This is so scary. And they realize that the salt line is, disrupted. And the deputy is like, oh my gosh, should we kill her? What do we do? And we turn, and Sam is like, no, she's one of us. the camera turns and we see stuck in the devil's trap right next to the window is Ruby. And she's like, well, are you gonna let me out? I just had to fight my way in here. I killed a bunch of people and I feel like I might still have guts in my ears, so if you could come let me out, that would be great. So Sam comes up and uses his blade to rub away the spray paint to let her out of the circle. And I assume, they don't show it, but I assume they redraw it.
I think they do, because someone else gets trapped in it. I think so.
She's like, well, so those demons are being sent from, the new leader. And Dean's like, the who now? And she's like, Sam, you didn't tell Dean about your whole situation? And Sam is like, okay, well, I was going to. And Dean's like, what the hell? Okay, well, we need to stop them before he gets here. And she's like, not he, her. Which is funny, because I'm like, okay, love the sentiment, love that. But he had said, like, before he gets here. So she should have said, not he, she. Because the sentence she has constructed is, before her gets here.
I thought that, I was like, her. It's because they were like, it's not a deMAN, it's a
dewoman.
deHER.
deHER.
Oh, lean in. Lilith said lean in.
Lean in. She really did. But she's like, yeah, her name is Lilith, and she's fucking crazy and insanely powerful, and she will get you guys. She's coming from the west, and she's going to destroy you with hammers.
I just have to say, Lilith, I know you're slaying, whatever, but you could have just come from the jump. You didn't have to, like, set up all this shit. Like, you didn't have to, but okay.
Yeah. So they're like, oh, do you have a plan? And Ruby's like, yeah, well, I figured that we will need the cold for it. So, and then she kind of trails off and realizes that they are kind of looking at each other. And she's like, hey guys, where's the cold? And Sam and Dean look at each other again, and Sam's like, the colt got stolen. And she's like, oh my fucking god, are you serious? The colt got stolen. The colt got stolen. Oh, girl. Okay, well, fuck me, I guess. Okay, so this was my atomic plan. I know a spell that will basically vaporize any demon within a 1 mile radius. So, yeah. And Dean's like, okay, well, what do we do? And she's like, well, you don't do anything. And also, just so you know, I will also be included in that. So I will become vaporized as well. So I'm willing to, like, kill myself to get you bitches out of here. And they're like, okay, let's do it. And Sam was like, thank you, Ruby. And she's like,
kill yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
What does she say? She's like, this is what happens when I leave it in your stupid fingers. Like, she's slaying, I fear. I miss this Ruby so much.
I did too. But she's like, okay, whatever. The spell only requires one thing. Someone who is virtuous. And Dean's like, okay, well, I'm dripping with virtue. And she's like, not you. Like a virgin. And Dean's like, okay, well, no one here is a virgin. And Nancy, who is the secretary, is like, okay, I am. And Dean is like, really? Like, never? Not even? Wow. Okay. And she's like, what? It's a choice. And he's like,
he's Christian
okay,
shaming.
Yeah, sure. Huh. He has never met an adult virgin before, I think.
I almost said his brother, but his brother is canonically not. But
yeah.
He's never met an adult virgin. He met the Ghostfacers.
Well, as we'll find out. Anyway, but she's like, okay, if I do this, will all of those people, like, will the demons leave their bodies? Will they be okay? Will it save them? And Ruby's like, as long as their bodies aren't super harmed, like, as long as they were alive anyway, then yeah, it will save them. And Nancy's like, okay, I'll do it. It's my choice. I'm ready to do it. And Henriksen and Dean are both like, no, like, we are not doing that. That is ridiculous. And Henriksen is like, yeah, if we start sacrificing people, that makes us no better.
Okay, trolley problem.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, tell her, Sam. And Sam doesn't say anything. And Dean is like, Sam, Tell her. And Sam doesn't say anything. And Dean is like, okay, you know what? Can I have a moment alone with my brother really quick? And he pulls Sam aside, and Sam is like, I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm saying it's, like, our only option right now. And Dean's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And also, why didn't you tell me that there's some demon lord after you? Okay, you know what? I have a plan. It's a stupid plan. And I don't know if it's gonna work. But it's a plan.
And that's all Dean ever does, really.
Yeah. So, basically, Sam and Dean go back out, and they are like, we're gonna open the doors and fight our way through. And Ruby's like, are you fucking kidding? I'm leaving. I'm getting out of here. And it shows her walking up, like, to the window that she came in from, and she's like, are you gonna let me out? And Sam pushes some of the salt away, and she leaves. And she walks through this crowd of demons, and she's like, I'm leaving. Does anyone want to stop me? Yeah, I didn't think so. And she leaves.
Again, a cunty moment from her. Like,
yeah. Then we see Sam, Dean, and Henriksen, like, getting their weapons ready, preparing to fight. And we see all three of them scrub away parts of the devil's traps at the door and blow away some of the salt. And the demons start converging, and all three of them are fighting, and it's going crazy, going stupid. And while they are fighting inside, Nancy and the deputy are, like, hiding on the roof. And once everyone's inside, they climb down and start putting salt in front of all the doors on the outside so they can't leave.
Oh, and also, when they're on the roof, she says something really funny.
Oh, yeah. She's, like, they're hiding together, and she's like, when this is over, I'm having so much sex. And he kind of looks at her, and she goes, not with you.
Which, I was like, okay, that was funny. Like,
it
there's
was.
some good lines in this episode.
So they finish doing this, and as they are putting the salt down on one door, a guy comes out from inside one of the demons, and he, like, runs off, but Nancy can't stop him because she's too busy putting the salt down. Then, inside the station, a girl pushes Sam and Dean up against a wall with magic demon powers. And they're like, Henriksen, now! And Henriksen clicks a button on a tape recorder, and over the PA system, the exorcism starts playing, and all the demons are like, oh no! Ah! And they start to run for the door, but the door has salt. The doors all have salt in front of them, so they can't get out. So they all just, like, sit there and scream and get exorcised. And then everything calms down. Which is funny to me, because the electricity has been cut. So how is the PA system working?
Was the electricity cut, or just, like, the
electricity
phone
was
lines?
cut. No, the electricity was cut. All the lights were off, because as soon as everything settles back down, the lights flash back on.
I don't know, maybe it's... Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
I know, I tried to do that too, where I was like, maybe I'm forgetting something, and then I was like, no, because Nancy's cell phone also wasn't working, so I'm like, it's not even, like, the power supply is shut down. It's like, all electronics don't work.
Yeah.
Anyway, just food for thought. So it's the aftermath. We see Nancy and the deputy sort of helping people get out and go home. And Henriksen is like, well, that was crazy. And I guess now I know things. And they're both like, wow, you really, like, had no idea this kind of stuff happened. He's like, yeah, I did not. And they're like, so what happens next? And he's like, well, I come up with the best lie I can think of in the next 5 minutes. And you guys, then I'm going to kill you guys. And they're like, what? And he's like, well, when I say kill, I mean, I'm going to tell them that you were both in the chopper when it exploded, and you were so destroyed that we couldn't identify you even with dental records. So they shake his hand, and they both skedaddle on out. Then we see, it's a couple minutes later, Nancy is inside the station, and we see a young girl walk in with what you would assume to be her mother. And she walks up to Nancy and she's like, excuse me, I'm looking for 2 brothers. One is really handsome and one is really tall. I was like, okay, she read them.
Because I was like, first of all, they're both tall. And second of all, damn. All right, Sam, got dragged.
Diagnosed ugly. But she's like, Nancy kind of laughs, and she's like, oh my gosh, what is your name? And she goes, Lilith. And then her eyes turn white, and we see a bright flash of light. And then it cuts to Sam and Dean, and they're in their motel room, and they're just kind of bantering. And Ruby bursts in, and she's like, turn on the TV. Turn on the news.
Also, first of all, I love when she bursts in the room, because they're always like, you guys don't do anything to prevent demons from coming in when you're just vibing. She can just burst into your into your room. You guys are dumb. Anyway.
But she's like, turn on the news. So they turn on the news, and the news reporter is like, and after an explosion happened at the sheriff's office, which killed the deputy, Special Agent Henriksen, the secretary Nancy, and then basically like all of the officers who died in the demon incidents, they're just attributing it to this explosion. And two subjects who were under arrest, meaning like Sam and Dean, have all died in this explosion. So Ruby's like, well, great job, guys. You were so careful that your little plan wouldn't kill anybody, but it turns out yours is the one that has a much higher body count. And from the looks of it and the size of the explosion, I'm willing to bet that was Lilith. So, good luck next time we do my plan. And she bursts out.
Again, really cunty of her.
Yeah. This episode is really good. I think it's very interesting that, I feel like Agent Henriksen was one of those characters that they realized they had to wrap up because no one liked the
cop procedural stuff.
No one liked the boys are getting hunted down by the law.
Yeah, because every time it would happen, you'd be like, oh shit, yeah, why aren't they being hunted down by the FBI? They had to fix that at some point.
Yeah, and there was another, but I liked the way that they went with it. I mean, it makes sense for it to be like well, in the end, the guy chasing them realizes that they were right. But I also liked the way that they went in the direction with Henriksen's character, where they were like, yeah, he's a shitty FBI agent, but it turns out his life is also really shitty, and, he's ready to be #reformed. But there's a line that he says where he asks Dean, he's like, do you think you can beat whatever's going on out there? And Dean's like, well, quite frankly, I think the world's gonna end bloody, but you might as well go down swinging. And that kind of resonated with him. And I just thought, I feel like there was a look in his eye that I'm like, I would have been interested to see more of this character.
I think that his character inspires various characters later on, because there are a couple law enforcement people, there are a couple other people who eventually become hunters because something like this happens to them. I feel like that's Jody, a couple people. I feel like he's the prototype for a lot of characters that we see later on who are kind of, maybe they were, and not just antagonistic towards the brothers or whatever, but then they could become a hunter or that kind of, and it's clearly a very common hunter, but if he had lived, he probably would have been a hunter, because you always ask this world building question of okay, if he's an FBI agent, once he learns this information, what is he gonna do with that? And the show really usually answers that with, they usually go crazy and just become a hunter.
Yeah. I feel like it's a shame. I think something with this show, and this is not a this show problem, I feel like a lot of shows do this, but it's once a character's sort of main story is completed, they just kill them off. And I think it was for shock value, because you wanted to see Lilith killing someone who was a villain. So killing someone who was, to show the stakes, to show oh, she's stronger than he is. She is more of a threat to the brothers than he is. It's almost like she is moving up in the pecking order. So I can appreciate that. I think I'm just a little sad because he was just such a weird character. And again, one of the only recurring black characters in the show.
Also, whenever him and the whole law enforcement bit would show, it really would ground it in the real world of hey, this is how people actually see them. They're crazy. And it grounded it in this kind of these are the, when will you learn? When will you learn the consequences of your actions?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I know I've complained about this storyline in the past a lot, and now I'm, like, waffling and being like, but I actually liked him. But I just think, I don't know, I forget after this that this episode does really manage to make you turn around on him, and I think it would be really cool for a show like this to have a character who, I'm giving the writers and the CW and Hollywood too much credit, but I do think it would be really cool to see a character who was, like, in law enforcement like him, who then became almost radicalized and realized, like, oh my god, I'm actually, like, not doing any good here. Because that's kind of what he's getting at in the shows, where he's saying, like, I wait 3 years for one tip, and then I stop maybe one person from getting hurt. And I think,
like, maybe the system doesn't prevent crime.
Yeah, so I'm like, that would have been a really interesting take, and then to have them see him later on in a couple seasons where he's like, yeah, I've actually been, like, I've been hunting, and I've helped a lot more people, and I'm, you know, much more fulfilled. And I think it could have been interesting to see the idea of a world where someone becomes a hunter and becomes more fulfilled, because we see constantly characters who are like, my life was ruined by being a hunter. I would be interested to see a character who's like, I was actually set free by doing it, just to get a different perspective.
I'm trying to think of any characters, any people who, maybe Garth?
Garth, I guess, but Garth was already kind of like we meet him and he's trying to be a hunter, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's like...
I guess maybe someone like Charlie, but even then, like, with her, it's like, it did ruin her life in the end.
Yeah, it did.
Maybe like, I feel like Jody is the closest thing we get to this.
Jody and her girlfriend. They're girlfriends, like, that's all I got. Yeah, because in her instance, her son dies, and instead of it becoming, like, her catalyst for revenge or whatever, like, it catalyzes her into becoming, like, helping other kids and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, shout out to Wayward Sisters.
Yeah, Wayward Sisters.
We miss you.
Gone but not forgotten.
No, literally.
Yeah.
That is the failed spin-off of Supernatural that would have been so much better than the Winchesters. Anyway.
We love the Winchesters, though. Don't get me wrong.
We love the Winchesters.
It's not too late for you to come back.
No, literally, I'm like, here's how Castiel and the Winchesters can still win. Although I don't want Misha Collins employed.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, but no, I feel like it could have been interesting to have him come back. But that being said, I'm not, like, heartbroken that he died, because he, you know, it's fine. After this season, we start to get into a much bigger overarching story that has much grander implications, so I can see why they would be like, okay, we gotta focus on the big shit now.
Yeah. Now we must get to the Ghostfacers. This,
I love.
Oh,
this
wow.
This was one of those episodes that, like, the first time I watched it when I was a teenager, I was like, whatever. But watching it as an adult, I was like, wait, this is actually so good.
Like, I was like, this deserves an Emmy.
Mm-hmm.
This is so good. This is a legendary episode of Supernatural. It is also a GLAAD Award nominated episode of Supernatural.
It's
one of several.
It's too good. It has one of the best, most raw lines in the entire show.
Yeah, it's this episode, you know, when they thought this one up, they went, oh, we were cooking. This episode is not told the way a normal Supernatural episode is told. Because this episode is told in the form of Ghostfacers found footage. Now, if you remember the Ghostfacers, we have met them before. They are, like, fake ghost hunters that the brothers meet on a mission. I don't remember what episode it was where we actually meet the Ghostfacers. And we have the Lord of the Rings quote.
It was season 1, episode 17, Hell House.
Yes. And the brothers are like, oh my god, these two clowns. Like, they're clowns, right? But this time around, the episode is from their POV. Because it's their found footage. And it opens.
I will say, it is shot basically exactly like an episode of Ghost Adventures. Yeah. So if you've watched that, or any, like, fake ghost hunting show, fake, sorry for those who believe those are real, any, like, ghost hunting show that you've ever seen, it's filmed exactly like that. Like, it's all, like, shaky cam.
Yeah.
It's all, like, static shots of, like, the camera in the corner.
It's kind of one of the most iconic pieces of parody of a very specific genre that was so popular not only at this time, like late 2000s, 2010s, obviously they walked so that BuzzFeed Unsolved could run, like truly. And oh wow, Ghost Adventures, you brought back a really dark memory, because I had friends in middle and high school who were really obsessed with like Twilight, Avenged Sevenfold, and Ghost Adventures. Those are kind of the people that I hung out with.
So true. No, me too. You know what? I'm happy that we are like so similar.
It's dark. So this episode opens on the two Ghostfacers. They are Harry and Ed, and they are wearing tuxedos and sitting in like these somewhat fancy lounge chairs in front of a fireplace, drinking wine, introducing their show. And they're like, these are the real scary things, and we've caught these things on camera and whatever. And they're giving the most melodramatic introduction, whatever. And they're introducing it because they're introducing it as like the pilot that they are submitting to like be on a reality channel. And here's the kicker: they mention the writer's strike. They're like, I know you guys have been hurting because of the writer's strike, but nothing a writer could write would be as crazy as this. And you're like, oh, this is good. They ate this up. And they wrote this right before the writer's strike, so like they knew they'd eat this up when they did this.
I almost just want to tell people to just like go watch the episode.
Yo, this is one episode you should watch.
Yeah, like it's not even like, you won't miss anything. Like, if you've listened to our episodes this far, like, you won't need to see anything else. Even if you haven't, like, there might be one line that I can think of that might not make sense to you.
Yeah.
But, like, you could just go watch this episode. Like, it's genuinely funny.
It's genuinely so funny. It also is the only time we ever see the brothers swear, I think. Because it's found documentary footage and they bleep them out, so this is the only time you ever hear them be like, fuck. And you're like, oh, I would pay so much money to see the entire series with them swearing every 3 seconds.
It also, I don't know, we'll get into it, but like the fact that there are parts in this episode where the brothers like swear, it almost makes it feel more real. Like, it makes them feel like more authentic characters, because I'm like, yeah, I know these bitches are swearing up a storm.
Yeah, and this is like how other people see them, and it's exactly the way that we joke about these fuckers. Like they're clowns, and they're so annoying, and they're like, who are you people, when they show up on the scene. So we have Harry and Ed. They are sitting in front of the fireplace. They are introducing the bold new future of reality television, and they have the Ghostfacers intro, which has the iconic song, and they have like shaky cam and like flashes of haunted house. It's perfection. And it shows Ed, Harry, and then they have a couple new people on the team. Spruce, who is like one of the main camera guys, the techie kind of guy.
I love I'm sorry, the fact that this dude's name is Spruce is too good.
It's so good. We have Maggie, the woman. And we have Corbett, the intern, who is played by the guy who is the dumb boyfriend in Schitt's Creek.
It's also important to say Maggie is Ed's adopted sister.
Yes,
she is. It's funny because he keeps being like, she's adopted. She's Asian, by the way. She's played by the same actress who plays Tina Minoru on Runaways. If you're interested in that, yeah. No, I know. Runaways is one of those shows that I was like so fucking obsessed with. So. When I saw her, I was like, "Oh my god, bestie."
R.I.P.
Yeah,
we got some crazy cameos in this episode, and then they also show Sam and Dean, I think, in the intro, and they're in a haunted house, and then it's like phase 1, homework, and this might be the funniest sequence I've ever seen. Where they pull up in their car and they get out, and they're supposed to be like in slow-mo, but instead of editing it in slow-mo, they're just moving in slow-mo, and then there's like a car that goes really fast in the back.
No, the direction in this episode is fucking top tier.
They ate this up, you're already, like, you're crying, laughing, they're doing this, whatever, and there's like flashing to the confessionals, and then like talking to the camera. and they go in to their hideout, whatever, and they're like, good morning, let's get ready. And I think it's Maggie who's like, it's 7 o'clock, it's 7 p.m. And they're like, well, that's morning for the Ghostfacers.
Because they're like, then it cuts to him and he's like, Ed is like, yeah, well, Harry and I are basically in charge of the Kinko's that we work at, so we can get everybody out by like 6. Like 6, you'd say 6? He's like, yeah, I'd say we could get everybody out by like 6. So yeah, that's when our morning starts as the Ghostfacers.
I'm obsessed with also a Kinko's reference. Ooh, this ages this episode. So it's so good. So also they're in Ed's parents' garage, is where they have all this set up, and they do the character introduction, and they're like, Corbett, the intern, the cook, is also very gay. And you're like, okay, slay.
It doesn't say he's very gay, but when you watch it, you know. You're like, no, obviously.
In the intro, he's like, he's not even that flamboyant, but in the intro, he's like really into Ed or whatever. And then it cuts to Harry being like, so I think Corbett has a thing for Ed. Anyway, and
he's
not
also,
homophobic way.
It's not homophobic, but he's like, I worry what that could do for the dynamics of the team.
He's like, I'm okay with being gay, but I draw the line at impeding ghost adventures.
Ghostfacers, Klaudia.
Sorry.
Get it together.
Sorry.
If Zach Bagans was here, I would kill him with hammers.
Then we have Maggie, Ed's adopted sister, and then we have Spruce, who they cut to him, like, I don't know, in a tractor or some shit, and he's like, I'm 15/16 Jewish and 1/16 Cherokee. and he's like, I'm a shamanologist, whatever, and like, it's clearly making fun of the fact that that's complete bullshit, so I love that. And he's just making shit up. And so they're like, okay, we're gonna review. Here's a legend about how every 4 years, on February 29th, on a leap year, the Morton House becomes the most haunted place in America. And then Ed, he drops his pen. I don't know why this is so funny, but the way that it's framed, he's like giving this thing that he just dropped his pen, it goes like straight down. He looks like a fucking idiot. Like, you're like, why did they keep this on camera? But anyway, in the middle of them doing this intro, also, they're in the garage, so they're doing the intro, and then the door to the garage opens, and they're all like, and it's just the door to the garage opening, because one of their parents is trying to get in.
Yeah, Ed's like, Dad, come on, I told you we were doing this tonight.
They are not teenagers, by the way. They are all adults.
No, there's no way any of them are younger than 25.
Yeah. I feel like they're older than Sam and Dean. Like, it's dark. In the end of the day, in the world of Supernatural, I would be one of the Ghostfacers, unfortunately. I
feel like the Ghostfacers were the original Supernatural podcasters.
No, literally. Well, because we see them later at the Supernatural convention. We can't get into that. The second GLAAD Award nominated episode. Anyway, I'm never gonna get through this because I'm gonna be laughing so hard. Okay, then they get to phase 2, infiltration, and I have to say, the transitions, like, it's phenomenal. So it's nighttime. They break into the Morton house. They're doing all the shaky cam. They're setting up all their gear. They're like, okay, I'm getting the EVP readings. Like, it's so stereotypical. And while they're trying to break in, like right before they try to break in, they're at the gate or whatever, and they're like, oh, the police really have this blocked off, and it's literally just like a fence that says no trespassing. And Maggie is like, did you get a permit to film? And they're like, oh, a permit. Yeah, that would have been a good idea. And they're like, they have this on camera. They're like, oh my god. And they hear the Impala coming up, loud as shit, playing.
They hear some loud music.
The Impala rolling up, playing classic rock and honking really loud. And like with a flashlight, like clearly they're checking out the joint, whatever. And you're like, you're like, this is how these clowns look to everyone else. You see Sam and Dean.
it's so funny because there's this line too where that is happening, and they all like jump down because they think it's a cop, and they turn around and one of them is like, okay, not cops, just hits.
And I'm like, you know what? They deserve that. And so then they're like, okay, we're gonna set up Command Center 1, Eagle's Nest. They start rolling the cameras, they do all the setup, whatever. The cameras never stop the entire episode, which is also a part of the comedy, I want to let you know. And Sam and Dean are like, oh, I'm gonna fucking kill you people. So, phase 3. FaceTime. So the Ghostfacers start searching the house. They're taking readings, whatever, and they split up, which I don't know why you should fucking do that, but they split up. And some of them, including Corbett, have like night vision, like headgear. They're doing all this shit, whatever. And I think Corbett and Ed are somewhere, and they're like, oh, it's getting scary, it's whatever. And they turn around and they run into Sam and Dean. And Sam and Dean are impersonating the cops to try and get them out of the house. So they're like, everybody out, like, can I see some identification, which is hilarious because Sam and Dean are not dressed as cops and are just two dudes with a flashlight. And they can't really see each other that well. And then Ed looks at them and is like, wait, I know you guys. We met in Texas. And Dean's like, oh my fucking God, not these clowns. And Sam's like, who is it again? He's like, when we fought that, like, Tulpa in, like, Texas, whatever, they're like, oh my God, no. They're like, motherfuck. And like, then, this is the part that's funny to me. So Sam and Dean, they're like, you guys have to get out of this house. Like, by the time it hits midnight, like, people are gonna start dying. You guys have to leave. And they're like, what do you mean, whatever? And they're like, well, you didn't do your fucking research. Like, look at all the missing persons reports, like, every leap year, whatever. And I love how Sam brought the paperwork with him. I don't know why he brought it in the house with him. I guess for dramatic effect. And he's like, you guys need to fucking leave.
He brought it with him because that's what the story called for.
Yeah, he brought it with him because Sam's the research man. Team 2, while all this is happening, Team 2 is, I want to say, it's the rest of them. It's Spruce, Maggie, and Harry, I think. And they're in another room, and, like, this ghost of, like, this guy from, like, the 1940s shows up in, like, 4K HD, and is like, no, don't shoot me, and then gets shot. And so we, like, see how he dies. And they're like, oh, holy shit, like, we got the ghost on camera. They're, like, freaking out. They start running. They're like, whatever. And they bring it in, whatever, and Sam and Dean are like, you guys have to get out. And they're like, no, we got it. They're like, they're playing it.
Okay, it's really funny because they run in, they're like, oh my God, we got... What are you guys doing here?
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and Harry's like, wait a minute. What are you guys doing? You guys.
Yeah, it's
Texas?
very pointing... Yeah, they're very pointing Spider-Man. And, they're playing the footage, whatever, and Sam and Dean walk away. They're trying to whisper to themselves, but the camera picks it up. And they're like, they're like, okay, so that was clearly a death echo, but that's, like, nothing. Like, there's clearly something more powerful in the house, blah, blah, blah. And the camera guy's like, what's a death echo? And they're like, oh, my God.
This bitch.
This bitch doesn't know. He doesn't even know what a death echo is. Like, and he's like, it's not a real threat. It's just a apparition of a person who is stuck here, who we're seeing their death over and over, and they're kind of trapped in a loop in, the place where they died, something like that. And then they're all freaking out. They're all arguing. And yeah, and Ed is like, hey guys, where's Corbett, the intern? Like, where is he? So, and they're like, oh shit, we gotta find Corbin. So they all start freaking out. They're like running around the house. They're like, oh my God, Corbett. Oh my God. And they're like, okay, we have to figure out why there's death echoes here.
The other thing that happens is, like, Corbett is screaming. Like, they run upstairs and they hear Corbett being like, ah!
Yeah, they can hear him being dragged somewhere. Like, they can hear him. They realize that Corbett has gone missing. They're searching around or whatever. They're like, we gotta get out of this house. And they try to get out, and they can't get out. And they're like, how is this possible? And Dean's like, okay, so whatever's here, wants us to stay here. We are now locked in. He says something like we're being like supernatural barricade or something, which they've never fucking said before.
Yeah, he says it's a supernatural barricade, or it's a supernatural lockdown, and I was like, oh my god, he said the thing.
And I was like, I don't think that's a thing anyway. And at one point, Dean is like, I only got 2 months left to live, but you wanted to, go out with a bang. I don't know. They're fighting about that, whatever. And they're like, but we might die early in the fucking Morton house. And it's very funny. Which to be honest, I would make a joke like that too if I was in their situation. So they're running around. They're huddled in a group, whatever, and they see another death echo. And Dean, he's like, okay, sometimes you can break them out of their loop, and it really only works if you know the person, and you have some sort of connection to them. But he's let me try, whatever. And he's going up to the ghost, and he's like, hey, you're dead, wake up, whatever. And then the apparition, you see that he died by getting hit by a train. So you're like, okay, that clearly didn't happen here. So what the fuck is going on? So they're like, okay. So they start searching the house. And they find stuff about the guy who lived there, the homeowner, Freeman Daggett, and they start to find all this shit out. He was a janitor at a hospital before he died. He was a survivalist. He was really, really scared about the Cold War. He had all kinds of army rations. They're like, okay, shit. I think, and that's kind of when the Ghostfacers start to take it a little seriously. That's where they're like, okay, we have to find stuff. At one point, they find a surviving nuclear fallout pamphlet, and Dean's like, oh, an optimist. You're like, damn, bitch. And they find a book about taxidermy, and I think Sam says it. I don't know if Sam read this in a news article or something. I don't know how he figures this out, but they're like, yeah, so it seems like he took corpses from the morgue of the hospital he worked in and home to play with.
They find a box in his room, in one of his rooms.
Yeah.
They find a box full of tags, the toe tags that are on corpses.
Yeah. They find that, and they're like, oh, so he was clearly okay. And they turn to and the Ghostfacers are like, ew, gross, and they're like, okay, that explains the tags and the taxidermy and that's disgusting. And Maggie wandered off, and they're like, they go into another room. They're like, fuck, where's Maggie? And they're like, hey, don't wander off, don't whatever. And then they turn around. There's been these EMF surges, and Sam disappears. And all you see is his flashlight, cut on, cut? All you see is his flashlight, on the ground. And they're like, oh my god, shit. And then they're walking around. They're, freaking out. Maggie is, hyperventilating. Freaking out, whatever. This part is so... and the key here is that you, the main camera guy, it's switching between different cameras, Maggie's camera and Corbett's camera, and that this is mainly Spruce. And we see Maggie, and she's, crying or whatever, and, we have, her camera, and, Harry comes up to her and is like, hey, it's gonna be okay, and he's like, I'm really scared too, whatever. And then they start making out. And Spruce is still
and he's going
filming.
bow, chicka, bow, bow. He's singing porno music.
It's really funny. And Ed finally comes up to them, and he's like, he finds them, and he's like, are you sleeping with my sister? And he's like, no, says, I'm not.
Quote, my best friend and my best sister?
You're like, the way that's phrased is so... And then Ed and Harry start beating the shit out of each other.
The funniest part of this is he goes, Spruce, here, hold my glasses.
There's so many elements of this, whatever. They start beating the shit out of each other. And then Dean comes and finds them and is like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And you see them, they see them, like, break up, whatever, and Ed is like, are my glasses okay? Okay, and you saw that I got a punch in, right? Like, and Dean's like, what the fuck? And then it cuts to Corbett, like, waking up to, it's my party and I'll cry if I want to, like, playing on a loop.
Yeah.
And hearing Sam being like, wake up, like, Corbett, stay awake, like,
and
wake up.
Just for context, the way that Corbett's camera is that it's, like, he has the camera where one is facing his face, so you're getting his reaction, and one is facing forward.
Yeah. They really ate with this. Like, they, and so he, and they're both tied to chairs at this creepy table that has, like, an old, decayed, like, birthday cake, and as we see, the other dead bodies, whatever, and Sam's like, you gotta stay awake, whatever, and then, like, Sam's like, oh, shit, and this big creepy guy, and it says big creepy guy on the wiki, by the way, walks behind Corbett and puts a fucking spike through his neck. I'm like, of all the ways, holy shit. And then puts a party hat on Sam. I don't know why he keeps Sam alive, frankly.
Special boy powers.
Not really
Winchester
explained.
privilege.
Yeah. Literally Winchester privilege. So we cut back to the chuckle fucks upstairs, and they're like, okay, shit, I can't figure this out, whatever. And they're going through all the stuff again. And Dean's like, wait, he was scared. And then he just bolts, and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he starts running and moving things, whatever, and he's like, he was scared and he was a survivalist. And, like, these Cold War nuts who were scared of the Ruskies, they always had a fucking basement. And I'm like, all right, Dean, using them brain cells, rub those two brain cells together.
Who needs a high school degree?
He has a GED. He does. And I'm like, come on, Dean. And they're like, okay, so they open the door. They're like, all right, let's go to go into this creepy basement. And they all try to go down, and Dean and the camera guy, Spruce, get through, and then the door slams, and they can't open it, and they're like, oh my god, shit, whatever. And Dean's like, hey, guys, like, it doesn't want us to come down here. You guys need to, like, go to my bag, get the salt that's in there. Ed and Harry are like...
He's like, get the salt that's in there. Draw a circle with the salt and get in. And they're like, get in. Get it into the duffel bag? And he's like, no, into the salt circle! And they're both like, oh, yeah, okay.
Like, it is so... They're all so dumb. So they run down the stairs, and, while they're running down the stairs, the rest of them, which is, Ed, Harry, and Maggie, they, like, run into another room, and they're freaking out, and they're trying to draw the circle, and suddenly, I think Maggie or one of them sees Corbett's ghost, reliving his death, like, standing in the corner, like he can't talk, and he's, like, scared, and he's whatever, and they're all like, oh my god, he's dead. And we're seeing his oh my god, like, and they start to have a fucking breakdown. And they have this whole, like, breakdown of, like, they're singing the little Ghostfacers song, and they're like, we stay, we go where nobody else wants to go, and they stay, and, like, they're like singing whatever, and they're like, okay, maybe this is getting too real, whatever. And they're seeing his death over and over, and they're like, oh my god. And then it cuts to Dean finding the bomb shelter, getting inside, and at one point Dean turns to Spruce, the camera guy, and he's like, really? You're still filming? And he's like, does this help you? Does this help you with this? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, okay.
Then, also, another thing that's funny is Dean is trying to figure this out, and Spruce goes, so you have 2 months left, what was that about? And he's like, yeah, and he starts being like, well, you know, it's a complicated story, it's because... no, you're not gonna get no, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. And he goes, oh, is it cancer?
It's actually so funny. Like, God, it's so good. And also I think at one point, like, Dean moves something really heavy and he's like, damn, okay, you're strong. Like, shit. And I'm like, no, he's just large. They finally open up the bomb shelter right before Sam is about to, like, also get a spike through his neck. Again, I don't know why that's the way that they're choosing of death, but okay. And, they shoot, like, salt rounds to get rid of the ghost of, Daggett, who's the homeowner ghost. And Sam, they untie Sam, whatever, and there's these, like, gross decaying bodies and whatever, and they see the body of Corbett, and Sam's like, okay, so, just as an FYI, Daggett, he was more of the Norman Bates type of lonely, where he killed himself after stealing the bodies, and each February 29th, he takes people for his birthday party, so he was, like, really mentally unwell and lonely. So, I love how in this episode they're like, oh, so it's like a normal kind of creepy with the dead bodies, not like a necrophilia creepy with dead bodies. Just letting you know. And you're like, Jesus Christ. Okay.
You're like, woo! Thank goodness I didn't have to deal with that in an episode of the CW's hit show Supernatural.
It's Jesus. And they're like, okay, like, we didn't fully get rid of him, what do we do? And then it cuts back to quite possibly the best part of the entire episode.
Also, I'm gonna say something so fucked up. From this part, I was like, am I about to cry right now? No, like, I got, like, really emotional. And it was so weird.
The acting, they ate it up. Like,
I agree. I was like, wait, they're crying? This is crazy.
So, they're stuck in this circle. They're seeing Corbett die over and over. They're like, we have to do something. And Ed is like, okay, well, he's stuck in that. Like, I think Maggie is like, this is horrible. Like, he has to relive his death over and over again. And he's, like, stuck like that forever. And Ed's like, we have to do something. Like, we have to break him out, right? Like he knows us. Like, we can do something, right? And he bravely steps out of the circle to go, like, talk to him. And he's like, hey, buddy, whatever. And, like, it doesn't work. Like, and then the echo disappears. And he runs back to the circle. And he's like, I don't know what to do. And Harry's like, okay, I didn't want to have to say this, but maybe this will help. And this is where you're laughing, you're crying, you're whatever.
And he says one of the best lines in the entire show.
What
exactly
does he say?
So he's like, Ed, Corbett was into you. And he's like, what? Into what? And he's like, no, he wanted you. He's like, wanted me to do what? And he's
all
like,
the ways to phrase it.
And he's like, no, he like, you need to, you know what I'm saying. You can do this. And he's like, do what? And he's like, quote, you've got to go be gay for that poor dead intern.
Again, best line in all of Supernatural, probably.
And GLAAD nominated line.
And at this point, I was dying. You gotta be gay for that poor dead intern. Ed takes that line and he fucking runs with it. Like, he goes up to Corbett's ghost. He puts on an Emmy-nominated acting job. An Emmy winning should have been acting job where he's like, hey, Corbett, we all cared about you. And we all cared about you. I cared about you. I love you, whatever. And you're like, holy shit! You're like, damn! And also, you know, was he having a little bisexual awakening? Who can say?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I agree. He was crying too. He was crying, and when Harry told him that, he had a look of realization. I'm just saying, you can't, I'm not wrong about this. I know.
He went through something, okay? That's why he was writing Supernatural fanfiction later. I can't. Anyway, so he, you know, it's something that happens to us all. And he he does this and it fucking works. Like, Corbett recognizes him and Corbett doesn't just disappear. Corbett, like, recognizes him, like, looks up, whatever, and then, like, runs away. And they're like, huh? And, Corbett shows up in the basement, just as Daggett has been beating the shit out of Sam, Dean, and Spruce in the basement. And Corbett to the rescue, Corbett's ghost launches himself at Daggett, and then they have, like, a ghost fight and disappear in, like, a ball of white energy. And they're all like, oh my god, the gay kid saved the day. And all I could think about was, so this episode walked so that the Destiel confession could run? Because
no,
what?
I'm like, guys, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Like, what is more supernatural than a gay confession, gay person dies, saves everybody?
I'm just saying, could we not have gotten Ben Edlund to write that episode?
Listen, I like that episode, actually. I actually don't hate it. We'll get to that in 8 million years. It'll take 8 million years, but we'll get there. But literally that's all I could think about. Also, when he stuck the thing in his neck, I kept being like, the rusty nail. Sam almost died on a rusty nail first. God, this episode makes me laugh so much. So I think at this point they do, like, narration or something, and it's like, it's the morning, they're walking out of the house, everyone minus Corbett, and you have Ed and Harry back in front of the fireplace, and at this point, we have also one of the most famous lines in Supernatural, a gif that you have probably seen. They're talking about the loss of their friend, and they are exploiting this man's death. You're like, wow, you put his dead body, okay. And they're like, you know, he wasn't just an intern, he earned full Ghostfacer status. And they're saying all this kind of stuff, whatever. And then, like, Ed is talking about it, and he's getting a little emotional. And then, like, and he's just kind of going off the cuff. And he says the line of all time, which is like, you know, and we've learned a lot, whatever, this and that, and whatever, you know, and how gay love can pierce through the veil of death and save the day.
No notes. No notes. Literally the best line ever spoken on a television show.
The impact that line has had. Because it kind of happens in the show multiple times, is the thing.
I'm just saying, that is how season 4 begins. Like, that is literally spoilers for the first... It's foreshadowing, and the writers didn't even know it.
Literally.
That's literally also the last episode of the show, when Cass is like, I'm making heaven for you. That's how Cass got out of Super Hell, because the power of gay love pierced the veil of death to save the day.
Mayhaps Corbett walked so that Castiel could run. Could fly, even. Like, these are just... The Ghostfacers, they're so important. So then it cuts to now real life. We have been watching this pilot on.
There's also one more scene before this where it shows Spruce is filming.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Spruce is filming Corbett as he's like packing up the truck, and he's like, "What do you think is gonna happen on this trip?" And Corbett's like, "This is so silly," and he's like, "Come on, man," and he's like, I think we're gonna find everything that we want. Does that sound stupid? That sounds stupid. And he kind of, like, smiles at the screen, and then it, like, freeze frames on his smile and fades to black, and then it's, like, Ghostfacers.
And it's, like, in memory of our friend, whatever, and it's, like, Ghostfacers.
Alan J. Corbett.
Yeah.
No, I was, like, weirdly emotional.
Yeah, I was like, damn. I was like, they got me. And then it cuts to all of them with Sam and Dean are watching this as a tape, and Sam and Dean are like, wow, you really exploited your friend for that. Damn. And they're like, you know, what do you think? And they're like, okay, well, you're really walking a moral line here. But we gotta go. And they're like, oh my god, like, this is, like, it's really happening for us, like, all these kind of things. And they're like, you know, it's really gonna happen. And they're like, no, it isn't. You know what happens when people learn the truth? you get put in a straitjacket, you get arrested, you get punched in the face. And they're like, no, it's fine. And Sam and Dean leave, and it cuts to, they're like, okay, let's pack it up, let's get this, let's get that, let's get whatever. And they notice a bag that Sam and Dean left underneath, like, the TV, and they pull it out, and there's this, like, Looney Tunes style large magnet that they have left.
No, it's like an electromagnetic device, and I'm like, how did you fucking chucklefucks figure out, first of all, how to make this, second of all, where did you get the resources to make this on such short notice? It had to be.
And the science of this doesn't make any sense, but, like, this device starts to, like, wipe out all their hard drives so that there isn't footage of them, which makes sense because they were wanted by the FBI and they're supposed to be dead, but, and it wipes everything out, including the Ghostfacers pilot, which is also kind of sad, because you're like, oh, you have Corbett's last moments, aw. And, Sam and Dean are like, are we clear? Whatever, and they're running away, and all they hear is the Ghostfacers being like, no! Whatever. And they're in the car, and they're like, you know, I'm gonna miss that show. It wasn't that bad. And they're like, and
Dean's like, Sam's like, yeah, the world just wasn't ready for the Ghostfacers.
And that's the end of the episode. And you're like, I have no notes. Ugh. It's perfect.
A classic. A literal classic.
It's so good. Like,
It's also, another funny thing is you don't actually see the credits for this episode until, like, after you cut out, like, the opening credits, where it's, like, you know, it has the actors and the producers' names in the beginning. It didn't happen until after, like, the episode with the Ghostfacers finished.
Also,
it was really funny. It was very interestingly produced, this episode. I
forgot that they had an official web series spinoff called The Ghostbusters.
They did. It was like
Ghostfacers, sorry.
They decided, they're like, we're gonna do a rebrand, we're gonna do the Ghostbusters.
Destiel is in one of the episodes, which I forgot.
We should, oh my god, guys, should we do a live show where we talk about this series?
Yeah, like, how many episodes did it have?
I think it had, like, 10 or something?
I don't remember seeing all of the special, he posted a Twitter account to a link to a special episode in which the Ghostfacers meet Castiel, first shown during the Hellhounds. They knew how to do fan service.
Wait, okay, hang on. I want to see, sorry, now this is the part where we both just go on the wiki and, like, we don't actually talk on our podcast. We just, like, look at this. When did the Ghostfacers show came out? It was 11 episodes. It came out in August 2011.
Yeah, like, this was kind of, like, the pilot for the Ghostfacers show.
What part of Supernatural was this taking place during?
What do you mean?
Like, when in Supernatural, what was coming out at the same time as this?
Oh. Ooh.
So, 2011, October 2011... I need to know, season 7, it would have been taking place when season 7 was being released.
Oh, wow.
So, I don't know if it takes place then, or if it just happens to coincide with it. We're gonna have to
watch it and find out.
We're gonna have to watch it when we get there and find out, guys. Oh. Leave a like and a comment, and hit that subscribe button if you want us to talk about the Ghostfacers.
Oh, wow.
Mini web series.
I literally forgot that existed.
The Ghostfacers are literally us. I think we need to dress up
Halloween.
As them and do a. I think we need to dress up as them for our live show. Anyway, no, this is like I found it was funny. We were talking. I was texting Claudia after I first watched this episode, and it was one that, like, when I was first watching Supernatural, I didn't really appreciate, but now as an adult watching it, I'm like, wait, this is gold.
I don't remember my initial thought. I think I was in college when I watched this.
I think it's a better episode when you know what is happening, like, what's gonna happen, because I feel like it almost, like, you go off of this really serious episode, and Supernatural loves to do this, where they have a huge tonal dissonance between the episodes that are next to each other. So, and I know sometimes network shows do this, so it's like you don't get all these really lore heavy and emotion heavy episodes in a row, because it can be hard for some viewers. But I think it was interesting because when I was first watching this, it was on Netflix. I was, like, trying to get through it. And I was like, oh my god, they're interrupting the grand narrative to talk about this stupid thing. But now I'm like, okay, I know what happens. And I'm also a bit more mature. I can appreciate something that is not exclusively for the narrative.
I can appreciate a fine wine known as the Ghostfacers.
Exactly. It gets better with age. It
really does. It really, like, I have to say, GLAAD Award nominated Gay Love Can Pierce Through the Veil of Death and Save the Day. What else? What else is there? That's it. We don't need anything else.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And there's a really nice thing, a very exciting thing, is that after this, there are 3 more episodes in this season. So 1 more episode of the Mystery Spot cast for this season, and then 1 for the finale.
It's happening.
And then it will be time. It will be time, guys.
Oh, we're gonna be
keep a lookout. I am so excited because I feel like a lot of it is like, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like after season 5 is when Supernatural really starts to like that is when I feel like, honestly, once all of the angel stuff starts is when it kind of loses the plot. Like, it becomes bigger than it needs to be. And that's when the real problems start, is like, honestly, about there. Because that's also when Eric Kripke was like, I'm leaving Dubai. So there's that. But I also feel like that post season 3, season 4, like the Castiel era is kind of what I considered like the modern Supernatural, because during that era, between like season, like probably season 5, season 6, probably season 6, season 7 maybe, was when it started to really gain popularity online.
Because Castiel
and then
existed.
Through maybe like and then through probably season 8 or probably season like 9 or 10 was when it was like at its peak fandom. So like, this is what I'm starting to like, what we're about to get to is what I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember talking about this online. I remember seeing endless metas talking about it. So I'm excited to get into the modern era.
The modern era, aka when it started to get bad.
Exactly.
But it still gave people worms for brains. So, and so gives me worms for brains. Me too. So, that's all we have.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm so excited that we were able to be back. Hopefully the SAG will get a good deal and we can keep making episodes. So yeah, but we really appreciate you sticking with us, and we're so happy that you're back. If you want to see more content from us, you can follow us on social media. We're at Mystery Spotcast on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Tumblr. You can ask us questions in our like Tumblr Ask box, or you can email us at themysteryspotcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed, we also ask that you rate the show, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, Overcast, wherever you get your podcast, and tell a friend. We don't do advertising. We're not into that. So word of mouth helps. Yeah. So tell a friend. If you want to hear more from us, we are 2 of the co-hosts of RuPaul's Pod Race, a queer Star Wars podcast. We're working on some stuff over there, some plans for the new year, so we're very excited to get back into it. And without further ado, we will see you 2 Tuesdays from now for more slaying people, queer baiting things, the supernatural business.